First topic is furthering sustainability through the NEPA process, and we have a special presentation on this regarding a sustainability rating system called Envision. And our primary presenter will be Marty Krentz, who's calling in from St. Louis. Eric Cohen, the unit leader here, will introduce the topic, and John Sedeni will also participate. So take it away, guys.
I'm just going to spend a few seconds to introduce the topic. I wanted to introduce this for two reasons. First, Marty Krentz, work he did to look into this rating system, and to bring a perspective of a field NEPA compliance officer. You can see from the material that Marty is the NCO at the West Valley demonstration project. And the second reason was just to give a brief perspective of how it came to pass that we envisioned presenting on the Envision rating system, why a rating system on sustainability. And I learned about this rating system from John Sedeni, who had participated in a presentation on the matter at an interagency infrastructure working group. And we then discussed whether this rating system might have some interest or applicability or value to others in the NEPA community. For example, associated it is a checklist that, when I looked at it, it looked like a very detailed NEPA checklist, and that might very well harmonize with the NEPA process. Just the topic of sustainability is of relevance to NEPA. It's an issue that we ought to be considering and doing more with. There is a potential that a rater could get certified to do rating, and maybe NCOs or other document managers are interested in doing that. And so for a host of reasons, we were considering what might be the value. Is this something to bring to the attention to the NEPA community at large? And so it came to pass that Marty was on assignment. We asked him to look into this rating system, get certified as a rater, go through a case study, and present his findings, advise us whether or not this might be something of general interest. He reported that, in fact, it is. So, I'll let Marty, if he's still on the phone in St. Louis, where he's calling in, present on the matter.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric and Carol, and welcome to everyone out there today. As you know, my presentation is titled Furthering Sustainability Through NEPA Using the Envision Sustainability Rating System. Envision is a rating system that assesses the sustainability of infrastructure across 5 categories. Those 5 categories are quality of life, leadership, natural world, resource allocation, and climate and risk. The system is comprised of 60 credits that provide multiple levels of achievement for contributing to the overall positive social, economic, and environmental impacts in our community. It is intended as a decision-making guide for improving the sustainable performance of infrastructure projects. And after going through this process that Eric just described, I do believe that we as NCOs can best use the Envision checklist as a tool to promote the incorporation of the principles of sustainability early on in the NEPA process, thereby potentially improving the process by developing greener or more sustainable alternatives. John and I are also looking for volunteers from the audience who might be interested in becoming more familiar with the Envision rating system and are willing to provide input on applying the tool to a past or ongoing NEPA analysis for us. So a quick overview of the presentation today. I'm going to define sustainable development for you and describe why it matters, give you that brief introduction to the rating system, talk about the potential we see to further sustainability through NEPA, and describe the case study. Okay, so always good to start with definitions. I have 2 definitions of sustainable development here. The traditional definition is taken from a 1987 report by the UN World Commission on Environment and Development. This definition raises the critical point that our current quality of life cannot be bought at the expense of future generations. Sustainability is not only about preserving and protecting the environment, but preserving the ability of a society to sustain itself. And the ASCE, I'm not going to read the entire definition, but just note that it, again, includes the concept of improving quality of life indefinitely without degrading natural resources and ecosystems. Okay, another quick definition here on slide 7, Human Development Index, or the HDI. The Human Development Index is a rough measure of quality of life developed by the UN. As input, it factors life expectancy, education, and gross domestic product, or productivity. So this graph plots the HDI versus the ecological or environmental footprint. The takeaway here is that in order to improve sustainability, a project must maintain or increase quality of life while minimizing ecological footprint. So this will therefore move the point in the center of that graph down and to the right. To tie this back to NEPA, if we refresh ourselves on the purpose of NEPA, it's a national policy which will encourage productive and enjoyable harmony between man and his environment, to promote efforts which will prevent or eliminate damage to the environment and biosphere and stimulate the health and welfare of man. So the purpose of NEPA really is to improve quality of life also while reducing environmental footprint. So why then is incorporating sustainability into NEPA so important? Well, the challenge from that previous slide is how to reduce your net environmental footprint without sacrificing the quality of life. On this slide, the ecological footprint of each country represented is plotted as a function of their Human Development Index. The conditions of sustainability that are shown in green is the sustainability quadrant there in the bottom right. They're seen as the area bounded horizontally by the world average biocapacity and vertically by the threshold of high human development. All right, so what's the point here? The point is that most developed countries enjoy a high quality of life by consuming material and resources at a rate the planet cannot support. So this undermines the ability of future generations to sustain that same quality of life. And the problem, as you can see, is going to be exacerbated by those developing countries as they follow the model set by developed countries. And as you know, we've highlighted on this slide U.S. and Canada. The Envision rating system was developed particularly with a focus on North America, and you can see how far both the U.S. and Canada have to go to reach the sustainability quadrant. Okay, so before I get into what Envision is, I want to talk about who developed and manages Envision. In 2009 report, the ASCE gave infrastructure in the U.S. an overall grade of D and estimated the needed repair costs at about $2.2 trillion. So recognizing an opportunity to incorporate sustainable principles into these pending infrastructure projects, ASCE, APWA, and the ACEC founded a non-for-profit education and research organization named the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, ISI. ISI and the Zofnass Program for Sustainable Infrastructure at the Harvard University Graduate School of Design then developed the Envision rating system. So what types of projects can Envision apply to? In this next slide, I've bolded the headings of the types of projects that I believe our NCO community is accustomed to reviewing. The rating systems for buildings that many of you may be familiar with, such as LEED, are gaining in popularity, but they aren't applicable or transferable to the infrastructure projects because infrastructure has different challenges than buildings. Previous to the Envision rating system, a comprehensive system did not exist that covered all aspects of infrastructure. So Envision and its compatibility with other rating systems. Before I get too far in describing Envision to you, I just want to give you a lesson learned, and that is before you use Envision, make sure to educate the project team and management that Envision is a beyond compliance rating system. I'm going to come back to that point later in the presentation, but for now, keep in mind that Envision is based on metrics of improvement that go over and beyond a baseline of regulatory compliance. So Envision you can apply to all project phases: design, planning, construction, operation, maintenance, decommissioning. It's based on the triple bottom line approach that gives weighting to social, economic, environmental aspects. It doesn't penalize teams for credits or categories that they don't have any control over. It does not include buildings or facilities. As I mentioned, those are already well covered by existing sector-specific rating systems such as LEED and Green Roads. Some of you may also be familiar with a DOE EM-specific example called Site-Wise Green and Sustainable Remediation Tool. Envision encourages the use of these additional sustainability rating systems that may address some in-depth, specific, or specialized aspects of a project. But the difference is that Envision takes a holistic approach to rating infrastructure projects in order to capture convergence of elements of infrastructure that are accomplished at that higher community level. And Envision can also be applied at any time in the project's life cycle, but I should note the earlier the better. Okay, so on to the credit list. I'm not going to go over all of the 60 credits shown here. The purpose of this slide is just to provide you with a brief overview of the credits. You'll note that some of these credit areas you're already probably familiar with, particularly those found under the categories resource allocation, natural world, or climate and risk. Envision has a couple added credit areas, those found under the category of quality of life or under the leadership category. And examples there would be encourage alternative modes of transportation or pursue byproduct synergy opportunities. At the bottom of each category, you may also notice a credit for innovation or exceed credit requirements. Innovation points are assigned for both exceptional performance and the application of methods that push innovation in sustainable infrastructure. We've also added here to this slide the 5 levels of achievement from improved to restorative. Again, I'll point out that that lowest level of achievement in the Envision rating system, improved, that does indeed go beyond regulatory requirements. Okay, Envision resources and tools. I'm going to quickly describe the differences, the different tools of the rating system and some additional resources. If you'd like a more detailed description on this information, I recommend that you go to the website found at the bottom of this slide. As I've already mentioned, I would highly recommend that you start with the easiest tool to use, the Envision checklist. Training is not necessary to use this checklist, although I would suggest also downloading the guidance manual and having it available as a reference tool, because it's useful in providing clarification and helping to interpret some of the checklist questions. I'm not going to go into any detail with respect to the Envision web-based scoring system that you would need to use to qualify projects for awards, as I don't have the time and I wouldn't expect many or any of you to pursue an award for your project at this point in time. But for now, just know that it exists. And if you have more questions, again, visit the website or contact me. Same goes for those other tools that are listed lower on the slide. Again, the biggest takeaway is that the Envision checklist is quick and easy to use. You can get through it with your team in probably 4 hours or less. The rating system awards. So they are entirely optional. To qualify for an award, at least one person on the team must be credentialed to use the Envision rating system. Envision requires that individual, who's known as the ENVSP, to log into the Envision web portal to register a project. That person will select categories for review, you grade associated questions, and upload or provide supporting documentation as required by the rating system. Again, when you're using the system, it's almost impossible to get all of the, I think it's 845 points that are available. The ISI, they don't expect projects that are rated to achieve a score of 90 or to 100%, your typical A. Many of the projects that were designed with social, economic, and environmental considerations achieve a score somewhere around 40 to 45%. So with that in mind, The minimum points needed for an award in each of these categories are the following: for bronze, 20%, silver, 30%, gold, 40%, platinum, 50%. I also want you to know that there are some fees associated with it. There's a registration fee if you're going to go for an award of $1,000, and then verification fees are on a sliding scale depending on how large the project is. So I mentioned on the previous slide under awards that you need to be trained and credentialed ENVSP to submit and prepare the documentation. To become an ENVSP, you must complete training that consists of either 6 hours of online webinars or 1 in-class workshop. You're then given a 3-day period to complete an open book online exam that should take you approximately 3-4 hours. And as Eric mentioned, anyone interested in the training should contact either myself or John. There may be opportunity for free training to you at no cost. I'll get to the details of that in a minute. So on to the potential to further sustainability through NEPA. Now that you have a basic understanding of the rating system, I want to discuss the potential that we saw, and the benefits that we identified include setting a higher bar. Using the rating system as a stable, standardized, and holistic approach from which to inform the scope of the project, it may provide more credibility as an independent third-party ranking system. At a minimum, it should provide for more sustainable alternatives by incentivizing improved performance beyond requirements. The negative to positive, an opportunity exists to start seeing these actions or the projects as opportunities for the betterment of the communities, customers that they'll serve, and the environment where they'll be located. The continuous refocusing and rebaselining, using an establishing and consistent approach allows project teams to continually assess and evaluate progress against a stable platform, even if subsets of the project or elements of that project are in flux. Envision, we believe that Envision can help keep the team focused on the big picture. Process versus document. Envision reinforces that the process is more important than the document. Large, complex projects, they can have NEPA analysis that are in themselves projects. Remember, the goal is for better decisions, not better documents. Stable foundation. We'd like to start to consider the principles of sustainability early on in the NEPA process when it is easier to make changes to the alternatives. The checklist is, again, a good tool to use to provoke ideas on incorporating those objectives early on into the project. So the case study, to evaluate these potential benefits that I described, we decided to apply the Envision rating system to NEPA documents. And the first attempt there was to actually run through an EIS through the rating system. We found out that typically we didn't have enough detail or we didn't have that intimate knowledge necessary, so we modified our approach and used the checklist as a screening level tool to answer 2 fundamental questions. One is, did the project team consider the aspect of sustainability as they were going through the process? And if the answer to 1 was no, is there a potential opportunity for improvement? So what we found in the case study was that the site we evaluated had indeed incorporated many aspects of sustainability in their NEPA process. That's the good news. However, through consideration and going over the checklist questions, and we came to the conclusion that we also includes the site personnel, came to the conclusion that there might be potential for areas of improvement and that using the checklist as a brainstorming tool was a worthwhile exercise. So where do we go from here? John and I, as I mentioned, are looking for volunteers, and that opportunity for no-cost training and examination exists. All we ask in return is that you provide us with input on the rating system. So if you're interested, please contact one of us. Our contact information is there on the slide. And with that, I will turn it back over to Carol.
John, did you need to add anything?
No, Marty covered the last slide. It was just, we worked out a situation with the Institute to provide free training for those interested, and with the understanding that the feedback would be provided to us to inform the utility of the tool.
Okay, well, thank you, Marty. That was very interesting.